All right, IU, you're all set. So,
Hi, everybody. So this is actually really good timing coming after the PAX talk because the visual novel reading room that we did at AnimeFest last year was directly inspired by the visual novel reading room that showed up at PAX a couple years ago. Um, so for people who don't know, a bunch of devs got together. I think it was organized by Christine Love. They shared a booth. They had laptops or computers, I think even a cell phone for one game, and you could play the games there and just, sit through and read through a lot of it. I think some were game demos, some you could go through a lot. And so I really liked that idea and decided to bring sort of a remix to AnimeFest, which is different because it's an anime convention instead of like an industry con. So it's mostly for fans and more about finding that audience instead of finding, press people or things like that. So a lot of the big differences, you can see from the photo here that a lot of us devs posed for. One, not a booth. The convention was nice enough to actually give us this room. It's like a conference room that was in the building out of the way, a lot of outlets, things like that. And they even offered to give us a bunch of laptops that we could use to load our games onto it. And so it was a much quieter experience where people actually could sit down and play through a lot. And we found that people would actually come back multiple times over the weekend to try out new games and new demos because they saw it and were interested, but had other panels to attend or something like that. In this case, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got ahead of problems and the problems that did show up. The first problem that showed up is when we arrived on day one, all the laptops that they promised us were not there at all. And no one on the staff actually remembered promising any laptops to us. Now, we were clever enough to see this coming from a little bit out. So every dev who felt comfortable actually brought one of their own, a demo laptop or a trash laptop if they were okay with it. So the ones you see in this photo here are actually ours, and each of us would host our own game on our laptop, which actually led to our next problem, which was we have a variety of genres and types of games, and if someone was already using a laptop and a new person came in and wanted to try it, they would have to wait their turn. So that actually was handled. Python was there. Shout out. After the first day, he actually put together this really cool launcher. And if you follow him on Patreon, another Patreon plug, you can actually see more details on that. But basically what it meant was that we got all the games on every computer with a little selector screen that had information about the game and an image, so that no matter which computer you sat down at, you could pick which one you wanted to play, and therefore no one was waiting for any machines. On top of that, by the second day, the convention found all the laptops they promised us. So we actually had like 10 to 12-ish machines running at any point in time. And through Saturday and Sunday, we actually got full a lot of times with people interested in coming by. Now talking about the audience and stuff, one of the problems that we did have with this setup was that it was incredibly out of the way. Most of the convention took place elsewhere, and it wasn't a booth or a spot in the dealer's room or anything where people would actually be able to find us. And so in order to get people to show up, we had to do some very aggressive marketing during and before the convention. So in this case, we hung up signs with photos of some of our artwork, like this one, all around the con, letting people know there are visual novels. Come check us out. The convention was nice enough to actually give us a banner that we could set outside that had all of our room's hours and information. So if people could see it from a distance, they'd say, oh, visual novels are here. And on top of that, I also printed out a ton of postcards ahead of time with a map and hired a friend of mine who's a cosplayer, very social, very good at talking with people, to go out onto the convention floor and hand these out to people. Here's another one. I'm seeing more photos in the chat as well showing up, so that's cool. Essentially, what wound up happening was that we got a lot of people who didn't know about it ahead of time, but showed up because of the marketing during the convention. There was no way to really find the place on accident, so it really was about going and finding people and bringing them in. But we discovered that once they did, they would come back, they would bring their friends, they would find a visual novel, they were interested, and drag a friend over and be like, you gotta try this. This is a good one. So that was a lot of fun. A lot of the benefits of this system are that you can get people in a quiet spot so they're paying attention, they're not easily distracted by things around them, which was really nice. And having like this room also made it a lot easier for all the devs to be able to take turns running it without having too many things go missing. It's also sort of an easier system if you're not a big talker or a social person, because instead of like calling out to passerbys all the time, we had folks doing that and already bringing people into the room. By the time they get here, they're already interested in what you're doing. Some of the downsides are, if this is something you do want to make money off of, there wasn't really any space to sell any of your stuff. We've done AnimeFest before, also like an artist alley, selling copies of our games and things like that. And this structure made it really hard to do something like that. Also, because we had to set hours and stuff, people couldn't wander in like really late at night when the rest of the con is more quiet and they just want something sort of more relaxing and easier to do. Our doors had already been closed by then. I think one of the benefits of this, though, is that once you have a lot of devs in the room, you actually get a lot of interesting discussion with each other, kind of like visual conference. But also a lot of people who are interested sort of in the scene can spend a lot more one-on-one time with you in a quieter environment, learning a lot about it, which is one of the best things we had. So I would recommend that if you have a local convention and you want to do something like this, you contact them as soon as possible. The reason AnimeFest was able to give us this room is because it was already part of the convention center and they didn't have anything else scheduled for it at the time. So by talking to them early, we actually got a really nice location for all of this. Whereas if you come late, that's kind of a problem. Also, try to reach out to as many local developers as possible, because if the person who made the game is in the room at the time, that's really good. They can answer any questions. They're the best person to sell the game or pitch it to anyone who might be interested. And so, you know, look for other local developers if you can help it. It's much better if they're present. And, you know, plan ahead for problems. Always bring extra machines, whether the, you know, bring a power strip. That's an important one. I brought a ton of snacks for everyone because we never knew when we were going to get any lunch breaks. And of course, as prior mentioned in the last talk, lots and lots of cards to hand out to people so that after you're done and they want to like find your game again later, they know exactly where they can go. In our case, because I didn't know which games were going to be up at the time, I had a card with like a generic URL, and then I updated the webpage with all the games that we had available afterwards. Ooh, looks like 5 minutes up, and we've got like 3-4 questions. So looking to the chat room. Oh, hey, and that, if you want to talk to me later.
Yay.
Let's see, random question. Was that the reading room event where you played Ecology Chronicles? I don't remember. There were a lot, but I don't think so. In fact, let me get a list of games that we did host at the con this year, and I will drop that link into the Discord channel. Ooh, there we go.
Sweet. Python remembers, and no, it wasn't. Apparently.
Yeah, he remembers. I don't. Oh, and also speaking of shilling, I'm going to try to reach out to AnimeFest again this year to do it again. So if anyone wants to come, AnimeFest is sort of becoming like a really big EVN developer type conference, and they're very welcoming. In fact, this year I even managed to convince the con to give free badges to any of the devs who brought their game to the visual novel reading room. So contact me if you want, and also tweet AnimeFest if you have a moment and let them know, hey, I heard about your visual novel reading room. That was really cool. I hope you keep doing it. Yeah. AnimeFest link. Dropping that in the Discord as well. We do a lot of panels as well, including how to make visual novels, and probably our most popular one, Let's Make a VN, where we actually make a VN during the panel from scratch using audience suggestions. Oh, hey, I'll talk about that one next year. Anyway.
Yep. At some point, we're just going to give you a 20-minute slot instead of a 5-minute one and see what you do with it.
I talk so fast, though.
Just imagine how much you can cram into them.
But yeah, were there questions? I wasn't paying attention. I said I would take questions, and then I didn't look. Is AnimeFest open to EVNs? Yes, very much. Several devs actually are local to the area, and a lot of us show up in Artist Alley to sell and things like that. We do a lot of panels. This was our first year doing the reading room, and they were pretty supportive of us. Several staff members actually stopped by and stayed for like 10 to 15 minutes before they were required to go back, just because it looked really interesting to them. So as a whole, they're very supportive. All right.
All right, Wolf. I'm going to hand you
questions. All right, so there are links in the talk. And
all right.
thank you very much, guys.
All right, let's see.